Krishna. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, and welcome to today's session. How are you doing? I pray that all is well with you and your families at this time. So, how are things going? We have been discussing and sharing with devotees care and concern about the circumstances that they've been going through, trying to deal with the COVID situation and the effects of it on their families and on friends and on loved ones. And we've been sharing with devotees that you have a shoulder here to lean on. We are here, we understand, and we share your grief at this time. And we were discussing that Arjuna had a similar situation in life. And we were trying to share the wisdom of the Bhagavad Gita with devotees so that they can see something relevant in their lives right now. So Arjuna is in a similar situation where he got caught up by providence in that his job, his occupation as a soldier became his greatest contention in life right now, because now he had to fight against his loved ones and his elders, his grandfather, his teacher, who was on the opposing side. And as a warrior, there's conflict of interest. What do you do? How do you assess this? So we're using that situation of Bhagavad Gita and the teachings of Lord Krishna to help Arjuna assess the bigger dynamic of things. That Arjuna, what you're assessing is on one level, and that's relative, but bigger than that is the absolute level. And in order to touch that dimension of reality, you have to raise your consciousness. So Krishna was very empathetic, sympathetic with Arjuna for where he was. But he's also trying to encourage him that you need philosophy to transcend. You need to be able to understand what is going on. And many times the deepest experience of grief or emotion is because of a lack of complete understanding. So in today's verse, Krishna is going to discuss Arjuna's contention with regards to sin. Because Arjuna is saying, isn't it sinful if you kill someone? So Krishna is going to discuss this point, giving a comparative study of the absolute universal law system and the local state law system, and how to understand the utility of both. So we go on, Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse number 21. Veda vinasinam nityam ya enam ajam avyayam katam sa purushaha partha kam gatayanti hantikam. Translation: O Partha, how can a person who knows that the soul is indestructible, eternal, unborn, and immutable kill anyone or cause anyone to be killed? So Krishna is starting in this verse to give us an idea, a conception of what is the universal judiciary system and what is the local judiciary system. How do we understand law? How do we understand the law system from the level of the spiritual realm? And how do we enforce law and the law system from the combination of the local state system law and the universal absolute law? How can we find a balance between the both? So on one level, we see that the local state law is man-made law. And that's why in Vedic culture, the law was done by kings, by monarchs, who were actually rishis serving in the position of kings. And Krishna tells Arjuna this in the 4th chapter. Evam parampara praptam imam raja rishi vidu sa kalena mahatas yoganasta parantapa. That Arjuna, this knowledge about self-study and understanding the soul was only given to kings before. It was handed down by kings. Evam parampara praptam. This knowledge, this parampara system was handed down to the kings. Why was it given to kings? Because the monarch is the leader of the society, of the world. So if they practice and enforce spirituality, then everybody follows that. Yad yad acharati shestras tat tat evataro jana sayat pramana kurute lokas tat tanuvartate. That whatever great men do, common men follow. And whatever they do by exemplary acts, the whole world pursues. So this sacred knowledge of Bhagavad Gita was only passed down to kings. That's why the sequel to Bhagavad Gita is the Srimad Bhagavatam, where we seeing firsthand all the accounts of these great kings and how they applied the philosophy and teachings of Bhagavad Gita to their lives and made their lives perfect. So we see Krishna bringing up these 4 points that he discussed yesterday. Ajo nityo shashvato yam purano na hanyate hanyamane sharire. So he was saying Ajo, unborn, Nitya, eternal, prime evil and ever existing. So he's saying, Arjun, somebody who knows this, how can he be alleged as a criminal for killing someone? So Krishna is making us aware here of the absolute judiciary system and the relative judiciary system. That if you're going to judge what is sinful and the effects and the results of what is sinful, then you must have knowledge from the absolute or spiritual realm, which is transmitted right down to the local relative realm of government. So therefore, that system of knowledge was passed down to kings. And kings enforced it using the Vedic injunctions, using the Vedic system, understanding what is the Aryan culture, what is the culture of self-realization. And from that point, they enforced the judiciary system. So this is a very prominent point because you can imagine what's going to happen if somebody is accused incorrectly and they have to be executed. Then there's going to be serious implications. And that's what Arjuna is saying. He said, Krishna, won't this cause sin if we're doing this and this is not correct? This is going to cause sin. So it's one of the arguments that Arjuna has given very early on in the Bhagavad Gita. In the first chapter, Arjuna gave 4 arguments. CEDS. Compassion, enjoyment, destruction of dynasty, and sin. So this sin argument now, Arjuna is again bringing this up now. You can see the mind is not letting go. Arjuna's mind is still fighting, but he's questioning it, which is good. And we can see that. Isn't that good? That he's questioning it at the right authentic source. Okay, Krishna, you're speaking like this, and I'm accepting you gradually as the authentic bona fide teacher, but I still have this question about sin. Won't I incur sin? And this is what Krishna is bringing forth in discussion now. So Prabhupada writes a very interesting purport here. He says here, everything has its proper utility. Dear devotees, this is a very, very profound point. Because when you understand what is something, then only you can understand what is its utility. What is it actually used for? And we see in this world, we actually don't know anything. We are simply describing everything. So you may say, what's that? What does that mean? Well, if I had to ask you, what is fire? And then you say, well, it burns. Of course, everybody knows what's fire, right? It's used for cooking, it burns. It's this red and yellow kind of flame. Think about what you're telling me. You're just describing fire. What is fire is my question to you. What is fire? Come on, Prabhu, it's something that's used to burn. Yeah, you're describing it. It's something it's reddish and yellow in color. Yes, you're describing again. What is it? What is it as a substance? What we got used to by the education system of this world, which you will see now that is incomplete, is that it's simply giving us descriptions of everything. It has never explained anything. Everything we know, anything at all, if you describe anything, if you talk about anything, you're simply describing it. You are not explaining its substance. It's like this, it's like that, it does this, is similar to this. Those are all descriptions. Tell me what it is indefinitely. Tell me what it is on the absolute level. Therefore, until you study the spiritual dimension, you're not going to get the absolute understanding of what this is. Therefore, it's described that the spiritual realm is speaking of the absolute truth. There are many truths in this world. What you're describing of fire is also correct. But you're describing a relative truth to the body. Through the body, this is what fire is. What is fire through the subtle body? And what is fire through the soul? So when you ask these questions, you can see it becomes very profound. It becomes very deep, because then you can understand ritual, culture, when we use fire in yagyas, when we use fire for cooking, when we use fire in religious understandings. Just like in the Holy Bible, it's described how the Lord appeared to Moses as the burning bush. So that means God also appeared as fire. So what is fire now? This is quite profound now. This is what Krishna is trying to tell Arjuna. Arjun, until you see the world from the absolute perspective, you're only going to have a relative understanding. And your relative understanding is just from the body. Oh, fire cooks, it burns, it's this yellow and red thing that creates a flame. Those understandings are correct, but it's only relative understanding. It's only because you're seeing fire through the body. Does fire have a higher dimension of reality? Does fire have an absolute dimension of reality? So when you assess like that, this is what Krishna is trying to teach Arjuna. Profound, isn't it? So therefore Prabhupada is talking about utility, because unless you know what is the dharma of something, the dharma means it's established from the spiritual platform. From that level, if you assess, then you'll understand what the thing is. And we see that with Arjuna right now, that his understanding of killing and his understanding of governmental responsibilities is only from the level of the body. Therefore, he's judging it to be sinful, and therefore he's feeling culpable towards the sinful activity. But Krishna is telling him, Arjun, this is only your relative understanding from the level of the body, from the absolute truth. And this has got Arjuna thinking now. Because Arjuna has confessed that I'm confused, right? In 2.7, he's saying, I'm confused. Karpanya dosha prahatasvabhava prichantitvam dharma samoja cheta. What I'm supposed to do as my dharma samoja cheta. I'm confused. I don't know what to do. Please instruct me, Krishna. So he's confused about how to apply his job and how to understand it from the absolute level. His job is a soldier, and as a soldier he has to kill, and he's seeing that killing is going to cause sin. Krishna is now trying to tell him, Arjun, you're only understanding your job from the bodily relative perspective. You have not assessed your job as dharma, as something from the spiritual dimension. Then you will see that whatever you have to do, be it killing or other, it is ordained from the spiritual level. So first see that, have clarity from that level first. When you realize it from that level, then you can filter it down to the subtle body and then down to the gross body where your consciousness is right now. So Prabhupada goes on, he says here, and a man who is situated in complete knowledge knows how and where to apply a thing for its proper utility. You see? Complete knowledge. How do we get complete knowledge? That's from the absolute realm, the spiritual dimension. If you are assessing something, if you assess from the spiritual dimension, you have a deeper level of assessment. You have a deeper level of knowing what that is, because you'll be assessing it from the level of its dharma, of what is its ultimate utility. That perspective is a very deep and empowering level of reality. Similarly, violence also has its utility, and how to apply violence rests within the person in knowledge. So we see that even violence has its utility, right? You have to defend the innocent. Otherwise, how are the innocent going to be defended? Women, children, old people, how are they going to be defended? There must be a system of governance that protects the innocent. That system, if it's enforced by a monarch or a king who is following the Vedic system, then that system will come from the spiritual dimension, and it has its own set of laws. Therefore, you see great personalities like Parsuram, like Lord Rama, like Parsuram, like Lord Shiva, who walked and traversed this earth to preach peace, love, and spiritual elevation to the spiritual world. They also carried weapons. Have you ever seen Ram without his bow? Have you ever seen Lord Shiva without his trident? Have you ever seen Parshuram without his axe? Because they understand the nature of divine and demoniac consciousness. And the demoniac consciousness only adheres when it sees that law is enforced. So Prabhupada goes on here. Although the justice of the peace awards capital punishment to a person condemned for murder, the justice of the peace cannot be blamed because he orders violence to another person, according to the codes of the justice. So we can see when there's a judicial system enforced, when there's a government that is accepted by the people, then the way that government runs is accepted by the people. But my question to you, is it accepted by the spiritual dimension? And if we look at the world, this is very prominent in understanding morality and animal slaughter. What makes it okay that an innocent animal can be slaughtered for food? What makes that okay? It's only okay because the local government system has condoned it. More than that, on the spiritual level, we see all the spiritual teachers are saying, no, this is not the way. That if one wants to raise one's consciousness, one cannot follow this kind of a diet. And we see that what makes it moral that a dog is protected and a sheep is killed? Both are animals. Who has made that distinction that a sheep is food and a dog is a pet? Who has made that distinction? It's a distinction made by relative law. On the absolute level, on the level of the soul, they are all part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. They are all earthlings. So you can see where the moral argument becomes a bit grey, like which side do you take? Therefore, if you're judging from the body, then one culture, one tradition is justified in seeing one animal as food and the other as a pet. But if you see from the spiritual realm, from the spiritual dimension, then we have an absolute perspective. So Prabhupada is using the example of killing here, describing this point. So you can see the problems we run into. It's not so easy to discern. So by bringing up these points, Krishna is actually questioning Arjuna's humanity. He's asking him, you are relating to yourself only at the level of a human being, and how to know how to live one's life accordingly. So therefore Prabhupada continues here now with discussing Manu Samhita. So he says here, in the Manu Samhita, the law book for mankind. So he's just clarified. Now if you want to know what to do, how to know what to do and what's to be done from the absolute platform, then this is the law book one should follow, Manu Samhita. So he goes on, it is supported there that a murderer should be condemned to death so that in his next life he will not have to suffer for the greatest sin he has committed. So we can see if we judge the act of killing from the Manu Samhita, which is coming from the spiritual dimension, then it is saying that that person should be executed. And if you judge killing by the local judiciary, the state governance, then you can see it saying, no, put him in jail. No, let him live a life sentence. So Prabhupada is making the point that Manu Samhita is concerned for the person on the absolute level, is thinking of his future lives as well. Therefore, the king's punishment of hanging a murderer is actually beneficial. Similarly, when Krishna orders fighting, it must be concluded that the violence is for supreme justice, and thus Arjuna should follow the instructions, knowing well that such violence committed in the act of fighting for Krishna is not violence at all, because at any rate the man, or rather the soul, cannot be killed. So Krishna has explained over the past few verses that the person is the soul and you can't kill the soul. So what is so called going to be killed is only the body. And the body is going to be killed by time anyway. So what are you lamenting about? So he's also letting Arjuna know that your sin argument, Arjun, you are talking about sin? And Krishna is making this point for us to understand this is where superstitions are made fun of. Because on the physical level of the body, we cannot understand superstitions. Why is it that they're worshipping the neem tree? Why are they worshipping the people tree?
The banyan tree is known for its ability to survive and grow for centuries. Its scientific name is Ficus benghalensis. It holds a significant place in mythology and is believed to be a wish-fulfilling tree. Its aerial roots grow down into the soil, forming additional trunks, and is therefore called the one with several feet. In Paradise Lost, poet John Milton writes that Adam and Eve made the first clothes from banyan leaves. The banyan tree has many benefits. It is one of the largest suppliers of oxygen among trees. It is an extensive source of shade. The bark and seeds of the tree are used as a tonic to treat diabetes. The roots are used to strengthen teeth and gums by brushing with them. The sap treats external skin bruising and inflammation. Because of so many benefits, the banyan tree is considered very important among trees.
What if there was a tree that could release oxygen even at night, cure a large number of diseases, and be a complete ecosystem in itself? Turns out, it is the peepal tree. Peepal tree, also known as Ficus religiosa, is indeed a very fascinating tree. It has many advantages. Pumps groundwater due to an expansive root system, keeps the surrounding land cool, purifies the surrounding air by killing harmful bacteria, provides home to a variety of birds and animals, supplies maximum oxygen, has a very long lifespan, up to 2,000 years, provides oxygen even at night, cures 50 types of disorders. Hence, the peepal tree is considered sacred.
It's not that they're worshipping, but the tree itself is giving 24 hours oxygen. Don't you think that entity deserves my respect, that it's keeping me alive? We are only seeing that the lungs are breathing. What is the value of your lungs if that tree doesn't produce oxygen? Will your lungs have any value? So don't you think that tree deserves your respect? So this is the higher dimension of understanding. So Prabhupada concludes with another analogy. A surgical operation is not meant to kill the patient, but to cure him. Therefore, the fighting to be executed by Arjuna at the instructions of Krishna is with full knowledge. So there is no possibility of sinful reaction.